Hey, all right. So we've had a lot of people request that I put together kind of a visual representation for what it looks like to set up your family office over time and why we start with an LLC and then where you can expand from there and what that might look like for legacy planning, for your lifestyle planning, or for a philanthropic focus. So today I'm going to whiteboard that out here on Zoom for you guys. We're going to put it together and this will be a resource for the mastermind. So go ahead and hop into a new whiteboard here. I'll show this again. All right. So we're going to put a little circle down here. And this is going to be your digital asset LLC. We follow this as a holding company, basically to manage investments, right? But the main focus for this corporation is going to be digital assets, and that's why it's DA LLC. So, you know, when you set this up, we charge, at the full price, it's $3,000, especially if you went through an attorney, file it in Wyoming, um, articles of incorporation, EIN number, your operating agreement. You need a registered agent, could be a nominee service, virtual office. There's a lot of things that you can add to this, bells and whistles, but it's going to be a corporation that manages your digital assets in the short term. Most of the time, this makes sense, somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 worth of digital assets. Moving that into a corporation prior to price appreciation gives you a lot of advantages for taxes on the other side of appreciation and flexibility, which I've talked about in other videos. So this is kind of a further iteration on top of that. If you haven't gone and seen all the benefits that you get for an LLC, uh, you can go back and check out previous content on that. So let's say you've already got this set up. Boom, assets go to the moon. You're now a multi-millionaire, centimillionaire. Maybe you're even a billionaire, right? God love it. Hopefully it happens to a lot of us. So now you have these assets in this corporation. We're going to draw, um, you're managing it right now. It's a member managed LLC. In the future, maybe you have a nominee service, or maybe even, you work with Digital Wealth Partners or Digital Family Office, to step in and manage this. So you're no longer listed on the documentation. But next move, a lot of the time, is going to be, a trust. So we're going to put this over here. This is going to be your domestic asset protection trust, DAPT. It's going to be here, and it is over your LLC. So this LLC is outside of this trust, but this trust might own some equity in this LLC. Okay. So it is the owner of a portion of the equity here. And it's going to be whatever portion you can gift into the trust. You might also gift assets into the trust previous to appreciation. We have a lot of clients that have done this as well. But over the long term, you want an asset protection trust owning the equity in the LLC. And you'll see why as I draw the rest of this out. So we're going to, move this over to the side. We're going to leave this here, and for the visual representation, you'll see why in a moment. This trust, oh geez, there we go. That's what I want. Might also have an LLC inside of it. Over here. Okay. And the reason for this is a credit chassis. So this allows you to borrow lines of credit, establish credit with banks and things inside of the trust. The trust may have digital assets that also reside in this LLC inside of the trust. And the reason that you want an LLC outside the trust and maybe one also inside, again, for credit purposes here, or to manage the assets inside here. But the trust, anything taxed at the trust level, any income more than $15,000 is going to be taxed at 37.5%. Ouch. Right. So, well, if we wanted to save taxes, why in the heck did we move them into a trust? Well, that's a great question. If this trust owns this LLC or a portion of it, it can push those taxes for the income earned inside here over to this LLC outside of the trust here. And in doing so, let's say you made a couple $100,000, instead of being taxed at 37.5%, now we're only taxed at 24%, right? With the current income tax structure here in the US. This could all this tax piece of it could become irrelevant if Trump moves to a flat tax and, the IRS goes away. And I know a lot of people want that, and I would love it too, but we want to operate under the pretense that that's not going to change. We understand the tax code as it is, and we want to use it to our advantage. So just to kind of get that out of the way, I know some people think about that and they're like, oh, this is irrelevant. It's not irrelevant because until it is irrelevant, it matters a lot. And this is the way you want to structure things for separation and limitation of liability also. And you'll see that here in just a second. So this asset protection trust is going to be in Wyoming, South Dakota, maybe Nevada, or it could be offshore. It could be in the Cook Islands. It could be in Nevis. It could be in the Caymans. There's a bunch of different locations that you might have this asset protection trust. A DAPT is going to stand for Domestic Asset Protection Trust. So it's going to be here in the U.S. somewhere. You could also have, an offshore trust over here that your assets could move to in the chance of, search and seizure on your shore trust. We'll scoot this out a little bit, make it look a little nicer. Oh, geez, can't spell trust. There we go. And again, you might have a connection here where assets might move this direction depending on trigger events. If you were sued, you could have contingencies built in where stuff transferred. This is, and people always wonder about costs on stuff. So again, we charge $1,500 for this. It's a great starting point, gives you a lot of flexibility on the other side of appreciation, full breadth of the tax code to write off things, pay yourself a salary, do all that fun stuff, take trips, educational things, write those things off. You want to move a portion of that in here to be able to protect those assets. So if somebody rear ends you or you rear end somebody else, let's say it that way, they find out you have a lot of money, they might want to sue you, oh, my neck, my back, that there could be somebody falls on your property. There could be, on the other side of price appreciation, people are going to find reasons to sue you. Family and friends included, which is crazy, but you just want to protect yourself. This does take a little bit of time to set up, somewhere between 2 and 6 weeks most of the time, to set up a domestic asset protection trust, depending on the bells and whistles that you want in it. And then it takes about 2 years to season this in so that you've got the creditor protection that you want, right? Like the whole reason to set it up is so that, if somebody comes after you, you don't have to worry about losing the assets because they're no longer in your ownership. They're owned by the trust. You set up beneficiaries to this. You can set up contingencies on what they have to do in order to obtain those things, how it's managed. You'll have a trustee over here, a distribution trustee, that has to sign off on all transactions in order for assets to move inside the trust and out of the trust to be able to do things with them. And the reason for that is creditor sues you personally and they try to come after you. That trustee's gonna be like, nope, assets don't leave to pay off creditors. Sorry, not moving them out of here. And that's the trustee's job. The distribution trustee is to make sure that you are not using the assets or requesting the assets to pay off creditors. There also might be a management trustee, and you might also have an RIA, like Digital Wealth Partners, that provides fiduciary counsel and wealth management for the assets in here. And all of those things further separate the asset from you so that if something were to happen, somebody comes after you, it makes it very difficult for them to obtain those assets or take those as payment for whatever they're suing you for. So this is the structure so far. And again, you might set up something here offshore in jurisdictions I mentioned, Nevis, Cook Islands, Dubai, Singapore, that there's Caymans, BVI, which is the British Virgin Islands. There's a lot of reasons that you might do this. We work with Brandon Avergon to do this. They have a proprietary method by which they do it. And there's contingencies built in for trigger events for the assets to move offshore in the circumstance where they are, potentially going to be taken out of the domestic asset protection trust, which is already ironclad. Like most circumstances, if an attorney finds that you have an asset protection trust, they're going to tell their client, look, you're going to spend $2 to $5 million pursuing this person over the next 3 to 5 years, and you're probably still not going to get anything. If it's seasoned in and structured the right way, that's going to be their response. If the client insists on that, or it's the U.S. government or somebody else that comes after you, well, now you've got the offshore trust as the contingency to that even. To set this up, trust is going to be, like I mentioned, 2 to 6 weeks, sometimes longer. You can't set this up if you already are being pursued by creditors or have large debts. Can't move your house into things if you've got a mortgage on it, stuff like that. So, and you wouldn't want to move your house into an asset protection trust anyway. We'll talk about where you want to put that later in the video. So you've got all these things set up. The asset protection trust is going to run you somewhere between $18,000 and $30,000 to set up. The offshore trust, probably pretty similar. Maintenance on both of them will be somewhere between $5 and $10 grand a year. Just really how it is. So now you got all these things set up, paying yourself out of them. You're generating income. You're increasing your wealth. You've limited risk and liability of loss. How do you separate all of that, but still get control over these assets? Well, that's a great question. And the answer is, we're going to set up a C Corp up here, which is your management company. Bill. Okay. So now this bad boy is going to manage the LLC. So now you have these digital assets in here, and you might go, why do I need another corporation to manage it? I've already got the LLC. Why can't I just be the manager there? That's a great question. The reason for this is at an LLC level, you have equity units. They're ideal for holding assets. If somebody goes to take this, it's difficult for them to get on the cap table or take the stock because there isn't any. C Corp provides you better tax benefits at the corporate level. There's a separation of taxation at the corporate level versus the personal level. So you're going to be taxed at 20% irrespective of income at the C Corp level. So if you're having really high income, you're managing like $25 million worth of assets, you're taking large dividends, don't even have to pay yourself a paycheck, don't have to deal with the 13.5% you get for federal income tax for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. You're going to be in a good spot here. So let me make sure the microphone's on the right thing. Okay, yes. All right. So now we can take profits or distributions for the management of these assets up to the C Corp and pay yourself, or use those again for trips or travel or whatever you need to use them for. Okay. And now you're only taxed at 20% here. And so now you've separated liability even further. So God forbid, again, somebody sues you, comes after you, you are the manager, you still control these assets, you say what they do on a day-to-day basis, you get all the benefits of them, but there's some separation here. So now in this contract that you have between these two entities for the management of the assets, there's a stipulation in there that requires, certain contingencies and things to happen before assets can be liquidated. The board has to agree on things, and you may have other board members. You might also have fiduciary counsel or an IRA over here, an RIA to help you. So let's say it's Digital Wealth Partners is on your fiduciary counsel, and they sit over here off to the side and they have to sign off for things to be liquidated. Well, we're not going to do that. we're, we're not going to do that. So, um, with that, again, we're working at the C Corp level to provide all the services that we do, the custody, the advisory, the financial committee, sourcing investments, due diligence on investments. Again, it just provides one extra party that you're dealing with that has to sign off on things for stuff to happen. And it's not contingent on you. Nobody can coerce you. Nobody can make you do anything that you don't want to because other parties are involved in the management of the assets. So again, these fees roll up. If there is some type of relationship there, maybe DWP is compensated in some way. We work with other clients in this capacity now. So happy to orchestrate that with people when the time comes. But again, it just provides one more layer to the onion, as Future says, to make sure that, if somebody does sue you and take control of the stock here in the company, they don't own the underlying assets. They just manage them, and they're able to take fees for the management of those assets and nothing more. They can't liquidate the assets. And again, that gives some time for those assets to pass through these things and get over here where they can't get them. So this is how we set things up now with our larger clients. The next thing that you might want to do is a couple living trusts over here. So you and your spouse and spell. Can I copy this bad boy? Well, I'll just make another one. Okay. So now we're going to set up these living trusts, and they are going to be the members of the cap table here for the C Corp. These would be where you would put your home, your vehicles, family heirlooms, gold, silver, things that aren't going to escalate significantly in value that you still want use of. You're likely going to be the trustee on these trusts. It's not necessary that you and your spouse both have separate trusts, but it could be, depending on the circumstances that may exist. What and how you want to split the assets and who you want to receive them, right? Depending on how large your family is and your children, to have separate trusts might make sense. Might be just one living trust that you and your spouse both own assets in. It could be revocable or irrevocable. It's almost always in the state that you reside in is where these are going to be filed. The C Corp, probably in Wyoming or Delaware. And obviously DWP, we're in Wyoming as well. Costs on these anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000 piece. Nothing crazy. Living trusts are pretty standard in setup. The C Corp, or this could be a private trust company, a PTC, maybe another way that you could manage the assets in the trust and the LLC through this corporation here. But again, this provides enough layers to the onion that things are segregated. It also benefits you in a lot of ways for tax exemptions, mitigating taxes through the tax code, rolling profits up, distributing those profits in a way that makes the most sense and protects them. And, involving us with that for the wealth management component also segregates, rights to the assets. Well, not necessarily rights to the assets. And not necessarily even control of the assets, but we will work in the benefit of the client and the client's interests when working in this capacity. So this is more for a legacy type situation. You also might set up, other trusts downstream from this that are insurance trusts for your children. You could set up a waterfall here that moved into another trust, where upon your passing, a lot of the stuff just liquidates in here and then rolls to the next trust, and that offshore trust migrates with it. All this stuff is contract law, and you can put basically whatever stipulations you want in there. That always comes with some red tape and some qualifiers and constraints around it. but our estate planners are very well versed in all those things and can help you make sure that everything's set up the right way, um, to ensure that the assets pass to the next generation or whoever you want them to benefit them and not have to deal with the estate tax or probate, which is, again, you don't want public record of your assets anytime they go through probate. The state knows exactly who got what when, and they're going to assess taxes on it. So this prevents all that. And then again, same thing here on these trusts. If your home, your vehicles, vacation homes, private jet, yacht, um, toys, gold, silver, whatever you want to pass on to your children. Again, that don't require active management. No properties that are actively managed or producing income. Vacation homes are fine, or your primary residence. All that works. So, and then, again, you may not want all this if it's just lifestyle focused. So this is more of a legacy planning setup. If you're lifestyle focused, you may remove all of these trusts, right? So these go away. Don't necessarily need all that. These trusts would still be good just for limited liability during your lifetime of your assets, separating them from yourself if somebody does sue you. And again, those would manage the C Corp. You would be the trustee on either one of these trusts. And then those would manage the assets in the LLC, and you get all the tax benefits and incentives. But it's a little less complicated, and we could then, again, still advise in that capacity and work to flow as much money up here to the C Corp and your living trust for you to use as possible. So, like dying spending your last dollar if lifestyle is your objective with the wealth that you come into. I don't find that that's a ton of people, but we do work with a lot of people that don't have children, and they do want to live, and enjoy the fruits of their labor, right? Maybe they're a little bit later in life and they're tired of working. They just want to retire and travel and enjoy things. So, this is kind of the simplest setup. May not need all those other asset protection trusts and things, if you just want to live for a lifestyle. So, and then we have, the philanthropic component. So, with that, you're going to want to set up, potentially, again, another type of trust here. This would be a CRUT, or a charitable remainder trust. And then you would have a foundation down here. So this could be a private foundation. And you might have a donor advised fund, or you could have an endowment. And it's not an either or, but oftentimes we see one or the other. So this trust here would be donated the assets from the LLC. If you wanted to take profits in the LLC, again, you may or may not need this structure up here. DWP may play a different role for this deal. Probably over here would be ideal. So you make a donation here to the Charitable Remainder Trust. If you're going to take profits and you're going to sell off a large portion of your bag, this makes a lot of sense. The donation to the Charitable Remainder Trust does have to be in cash. It cannot be in kind. The investments inside of this have to be very low risk, like mutual funds, bonds, treasuries, things that are producing a yield, but they're very sustainable. And that's because it's going to make a donation over time, one, back to you, and also to the foundation of your choice each year. And likely it would be a foundation that you establish. We do work with other parties if you want to set this up, that they will sit in this position while you get yours established. Setting up a foundation can take anywhere from 3 to 9 months in most circumstances. And so it does take some time, but if you want to make that donation, let's say it's closer to the end of the year when you take profits, and you want to set this up, you know, then you might not have enough time to get this set up before this. So let's say you're going to sell off, $10 million for your XRP, and you're saddled with the tax implications for that, but you're going to donate 5 million of that to the charitable remainder trust here, and then another portion to the foundation to get it started, and then keep the rest of it. You'd be able to write off a considerable amount of the taxes that you would owe. You might also sit on the board here of the private foundation. You can pay yourself up to 20% of the donations each year. Donating to a foundation itself, you can donate up to 30% of your net income in cash, or up to 20% of your net income in kind. So, again, moving the assets directly into here, you're inhibited a little bit, and definitely inhibited here. And so you would do that over time if that was your objective with this. Now, you've got these two other vehicles here. So an endowment is something you might be familiar with if you're looking at Harvard or large universities. Harvard has like $1 trillion endowment. And they can basically make investments in this vehicle here, managing the treasury of a foundation or a public charity like Harvard, for you grow everything there tax-free, which is what's crazy. So let's say you're doing private equity and you make 150x on an investment, whether that's digital assets or, like I said, private equity. Say you got Ripple stock and you got it early on and you wait till the IPO or the direct listing, get 100x return. You roll that right into the next thing when you sell. There's no taxes inside this vehicle, very similar to life insurance policies that we set up. So this is another very powerful way to compound wealth over time. And again, your children can sit on the board here of the private foundation, along with yourself, and you can pay yourself up to 20% of the returns each year from the endowment to pay salaries here at the foundation level. And obviously you want to do good with a lot of that money too. I'm not saying like you should be a miser or greedy. The whole point of this is to make an impact with things. And most of the people that we've had a conversation with are going to use it in that capacity. I'm just explaining, the limits here of what you can do. So, you roll these assets up as they're donated in kind into the endowment, borrow against them, make other investments, continue to allow those assets to grow and compound on themselves tax-free. And you can use that to fund this in perpetuity. You can also make investments into a donor advised fund, either from the foundation directly or from the endowment. A donor advised fund provides you some other benefits. You could donate there again from your LLC also to get the assets over here and producing returns that could flow back to the private foundation, because it has to make an investment in the foundation. Same thing with the endowment. So 5% of the returns here each year do have to flow back to the private foundation and then be distributed to public charities of your choice, or on things that actually are the objective of the private foundation. And this is kind of where Digital Wealth Partners comes in. It's the RIA that could be over here helping to manage the endowment or manage the donor advised fund. And this again gives you the legal separation, provides you the benefit there. They are a registered investment advisor group and fully licensed to be able to operate in this capacity. Obviously, if you're managing assets inside of a CRUT or an endowment or a donor advised fund, the donor advised fund, you can do private equity, you can do a bunch of stuff. Same thing with the endowment. It's really just this one here in particular that is very strict on the way that the assets have to be allocated. These tend to be a little bit more risk adverse. There is a portion of this one in particular, the endowment, that is required to be in lower risk investments, but a portion of those can be in high risk asymmetric bets, private equity included. And then the donor advised fund is really kind of run how you want it to be, whoever's managing that. If they're looking for asymmetric bets that generate significant returns, um, you get the tax benefit of the donation. And then if there's significant returns, those can be paid out to whatever private foundation you own or whichever one you feel is going to be most impactful for your causes and how you want to appropriate that capital. So this is just, again, kind of a high level of the different ways that you might set this up, whether it's for legacy planning, for your lifestyle management, or for using these structures in a philanthropic way to make an impact in, whatever way you would like to do that while you're on this planet. And went through all that really fast. I'm sure that there will be people that have questions, but I wanted to put this together at a high level because we have had a lot of people that have asked about what this looks like over the long term and how the entities are connected and who manages what and how the capital flows and the taxes on each. And again, I think I covered it at a pretty high level here, but if you do want some nuance or more color on any one of these, happy to have a conversation with people, or you can, ask me and I will pass you off to the person that helps us structure this for our clients. Yeah, hopefully this has been helpful. And we'll continue to do more stuff like this here in the future for Mastermind members, and continue to provide value any way that we can. With that, hope you have a wonderful day. Appreciate you watching, and we'll see you on the next one.